Greetings, Dr. Innocenti. How are you doing today?
Excellent. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm currently the editor of Argumentation and Advocacy. I'm a professor of communication studies at the University of Kansas and have been there since 2000.
Awesome. And can you tell us a little bit about how you became an editor and why?
There was a call for an editor. I was nudged by somebody, maybe the
Yeah.
person doing this interview.
What?
I
No.
thought- and I thought that, okay, all right, yeah, now may be the time. It may be a good time for me to give back to the argumentation community. And so I applied and was reviewed favorably.
I mean, what I remember was a very good application, very strong argument.
Well, thank you.
How do you envision argumentation and advocacy participating in a broader interdisciplinary conversation?
I think argumentation by its nature is interdisciplinary. So we've had people from English, rhetoric, philosophy, publishing and reviewing in the journal in these past 2.5 years or so. I think it's interdisciplinary too in the nature of the arguments that we study, because argumentation happens in all kinds of contexts, science contexts, political contexts, and more.
Yeah. Do you notice any citational patterns or types of like where people are either submitting from or drawing from like the reading patterns or anything like that from certain disciplines?
For argumentation and advocacy, it's predominantly the rhetorical scholarship and argumentation.
Interesting. In America?
Yes. Yes.
So since you've taken over argumentation and advocacy, who is the publishing house it's been with?
Taylor and Francis.
And how do you feel like it influences the journal in any way?
Argumentation and advocacy is no longer indexed in Communication and Mass Media Complete.
Oh, wow.
That's a downside. We're looking into that. On the upside, they do provide some journal metrics, for example, on their website for the journal, involving journal metrics, not citation metrics. So how many downloads there are, how long it takes for a decision to be made, a first decision, and then a second decision. It's a pleasure to work with them. They're in England and provide an editorial assistant and all kinds of information.
So can we step back for a second to the first thing? Because you actually are getting sort of to one of the questions I was going to ask you about. Can you unpack some of those numbers for me that you were saying? You like those different metrics, what they mean, why someone might want to look at that available data and how they could use that?
Well, I think the downloads is, it's a sign of how many people are reading the journal, a fallible sign. Of course, it's not complete. But numbers like the time until the average time until the first decision, I think, is important, because if you are on a time clock for promotion, for example, it's good to have a higher turnaround time.
So what would be like if you can see y'all's, what would be like a good time for them to see versus like when you should be a little concerned? Do you have a time you're shooting for?
Yes, we ask reviewers to provide a review within 35 days, and life happens. work happens. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's not possible to meet those deadlines. Um, but, 5 or 6 weeks, that's, I think, good turnaround time, less than 2 months. Some of that is also affected by how soon an essay can get under review. So during COVID, it can be difficult to find reviewers sometimes.
Yeah.
Because people are busy, but also based on specialization. Sometimes there are ideal people who would be reviewers and aren't available perhaps, or finding the ideal person can sometimes take a little while.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Well, I think talking about finding the ideal person, can you tell me a little bit about an editorial board, what's involved, how they operate, how you select them?
Mm-hmm. When I joined, the previous editor said to me, I just pretty much kept the old editorial board and added new people, if I'm remembering correctly. And so I did the same. And so I added editorial board members with an eye toward increasing the international presence on the editorial board and trying to make it more diverse and inclusive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do they do? What do the editorial members
Mm-hmm.
do?
Mm-hmm. They review manuscripts. So a manuscript comes in and they read it and provide comments for the author and for me, for the editor.
Mm-hmm.
I have had an editorial board member suggest that we try to have the journal indexed in Scopus Web of Science. And I thought, oh, that's a good idea, because that will encourage our European colleagues, for example, to submit, because only publications indexed in those sources are counted towards publication. So yeah, from time to time, people provide some additional advice as well.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. So I'm hearing one of the things is that they're kind of like the first grouping of people you might turn to when you're looking for who's going to review for you. So if you have an essay, you might want to look at who the editorial board is specifically for y'all to decide who to send it to. Or I'm sorry, you might want to, that might be your audience member, for instance, if you're a young writer.
That's right. That's excellent advice. Yes.
Can you tell me about the week in the life of a journal editor?
Mm-hmm. Well, it depends which week. So,
yeah, okay. Can you unpack all of that for me?
Sure. When winter break ends, early January, suddenly there are many submissions, or sometimes right after spring break, there are many submissions, or at the end of the summer, or right before summer break. So the submissions wax and wane. So in some weeks, I may be spending a lot of time trying to read essays and decide which reviewers I would want to invite to review those essays. It seems like, maybe 3 or 4 weeks before copy is due to the production department, final copy of accepted essays, I may spend 16 hours just trying to edit essays, going back and forth with authors and editing for content and style.
Yeah. Seems like a lot of investment, but spread throughout.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. Excellent. So what is the first thing you do when you get a manuscript?
I read the abstract and the references, and then I go back and I read the essay, not word for word, but to look over the overall, for the coherence and line of thought and fit for the journal. And then based on that, take a look at the editorial board and see who might be the best reviewers of that essay. If there's not a good fit among members of the editorial board, then I do some searching outside of the editorial board for potential reviewers.
Excellent. And speaking of reviewers, when you get feedback from them, I was curious if you can sort of walk me through how you use them to adjudicate your decision, right? Because we know sort of like the debate panel, you might get one that goes one way, one that goes another. Sometimes they all go one way very strongly, and that makes your decision quite easy. Can you talk to us about that a little bit?
Okay, well, yeah, I guess I'll focus on the split decision because that's the toughest. And I read the manuscript quite closely in those cases and see where I would lean. I also consider what the reviewers say not to the author, but to me. So sometimes a reviewer will say reject, but in comments to me say, well, if the other reviewer thinks that maybe this is just a major revision, then I would be willing to review it again. And so then in those cases, maybe I'll again, after reading it, maybe I will decide, okay, let's make this a revise and resubmit. Sometimes it also kind of depends what's in the pipeline. So if the pipeline is relatively dry, those are occasions when I will make special efforts to see if it's possible to bring an essay up to publishable standards within, maybe it won't be in just one more review. Maybe it will take a second round of reviews. I guess technically a third round.
You're more likely to give it more time.
Right.
A maturation process.
That's right. Yes. Well put.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. So that's good. Any advice you have for for people resubmitting? And you gave me some of I have to say before you say it, some of my favorite advice for issuing to reviewers.
Oh, I'm curious. What did I say?
You told me to put a table in my review, my response to say what they said and what I said. And that was way more efficient than just writing out, trying to narrate. It's like a line by line.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm a big fan of the table. So in column 1, a reviewer said X, and cutting and pasting their own words too. So you're showing that you have read and taken carefully into consideration what they've suggested. And then the response could include, it could go in several directions. Changes made, thank you. Or will do in the future because whatever, or appreciate this advice, decided to address it not as the reviewer suggested, but maybe by doing something else. But in any case, the reviewers see this, and so it's a good chance to be in conversation with the reviewers. I think I would not recommend ignoring advice. Even if you totally disagree with it, respond to it, try to learn from it, try to account for it. I mean, this person is a reader too. When your essay is public. So I guess the bottom line again is don't ignore a comment or be dismissive.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. What can I expect to happen after resubmission?
The essay will almost certainly go to the same reviewers. If I don't send it to the same reviewers. I will usually tell the author up front when I send the you're invited to revise and resubmit letter, so they know to whom it is going. And the reviewers read it again, and we hope they accept in those cases. It's unpredictable, though. It is unpredictable.
Yeah. They can be cantankerous sometimes, those reviewers. Reviewer 2 is infamously so, right?
Oh, not even cantankerous, but one person in round 1 says reject, and the other person says major revision. Then round 2 comes, and the person who said reject now says accept, and the major revision says reject. I mean, true story. Stories. So, I mean, that's just an example of the kinds of split decisions that fortunately don't happen a lot, but when they do, you really have to read carefully and try to help the author move forward with the project one way or another, whether it's the Argumentation and Advocacy journal or a different journal.
Yeah. What has being an editor taught you about making an argument in the academic context?
Mm-hmm. Probably the significance of clear writing. We learn about topic sentences for paragraphs in, I don't remember what grade, or having a thesis statement and making an argument. Just having those fundamental moves made clearly and consistently is enormously helpful, as well as the basic research framework. What question are you trying to answer? How are you answering it? That's methods. And for argumentation, that's typically what text are you reading and how, your theoretical lens maybe.
Yeah.
And tell us what the answers to the research question are, and wrap it up.
What are the implications?
Right.
Yeah, that's really well put. Be able to clearly articulate what you're doing. That's right.
Or in the abstract, I mean, you could also think about it as problem, cause, solution, benefits. What problem am I trying to address? What are its sources, maybe, or consequences? Your analysis is the answer, and leads to benefits, clearer understanding, better advocacy, and so on.
Yeah. 1 second, sorry, there is a fire truck coming.
Oh, I hear it.
Ralph might make an appearance also on this episode. I don't know. He's staying surprisingly calm about all of this.
All right, yeah, I keep waiting for the cat to appear, but I guess she's getting fed upstairs or something.
So anything else you think we should know?
No, I was going to make my plug for clear writing for the other thing we should know. Make an argument and make it clearly. Yeah.
No, I think that I love a clear topic sentence. I think it's the hardest to achieve, but I love them so.
I mean, make it possible for people to just read the first sentences of your paragraphs and still kind of follow the argument. Or if you write informative headings and subheadings, people will be able to follow your argument or kind of eyeball it and know where you're going.
Oh, yeah.
These just structural things are enormously helpful.
Yeah. Arrangement is one of the rhetorical canons.
Yes. Dispositio.
Yeah. With the Latin. I think that's where we're going to close the recording.
Okay.